Welcome back, everybody. Simple Son here. I hope you all enjoyed the clip of Nikki Haley showing up in South Carolina, her hometown, with all like 12 people, cheering her on. Nikki Haley, the people, you see them out on the street all the time screaming Nikki Haley's name. Her name's on the tip of everybody's tongue. Hope you enjoyed that clip. So, over the weekend, everybody and their brother came out with the response to Tucker Carlson's interview he had with Vladimir Putin. One of the clips going around is of Chris Wallace, son of Mike Wallace, famous interviewer. Not a big fan of Chris Wallace here, or ever, really. Talking about how there's softball interview that Tucker Carlson gave, and we'll take a look at that clip, and we'll come back. We'll talk about it.
Tucker Carlson showed up in Moscow this week to interview Vladimir Putin. It turned out to be anything but an interview. Putin droned on for 2 hours and 7 minutes, while Tucker sat there like an eager puppy. Occasionally, but rarely, he got in a question, like this one about the power of the deep state in Washington.
It sounds like you're describing a system that's not run by the people who are elected in your telling.
That's right. That's right.
But more telling than what Tucker asked is what he didn't ask. Nothing about why Putin invaded a sovereign country. Nothing about targeting civilians. Nothing about Russian war crimes. A reporter can ask Putin a tough question if he wants a real interview. Why is it that so many of the people that oppose Vladimir Putin end up dead or close to it? But apparently, that's not why Tucker went to Moscow. During the Cold War, gullible Westerners who spread Soviet propaganda were dismissed as useful idiots. But calling Tucker that is unfair to useful idiots. No, he's made a cynical decision to chase MAGA's affection for dictators. And what better way to cash in than Putin's Kremlin?
So now you see Chris Wallace's pantomime, his whole entire little thing he went on. Firstly, I just want to point out, I've seen at the end of the clip where he talked about, and he shows a clip of him asking Putin questions about, hey, these people came up missing that were your opponents, what happened to them, and kind of just trying to show everybody else what real journalism is. My first whole thing about it is that Tucker Carlson doesn't work for Fox News or any news organizations. It's his. So technically, whatever he asks Putin is his style of journalism. It's really up to him what he does. He has no boss except for his own self. Now, if you're going to say he has some overarching, duty, where does he have a duty to anybody to ask any hard-hitting questions, as if Putin's going to say, if he asked, just say, for example, if he asked the same question Chris Wallace says, what do you think Putin was going to go, I actually did kill all my political opponents. Absolutely, 100%. What does Chris Wallace think that's going to happen? What is going to come of asking him these questions? Now, did Putin, I seen the interview, did Putin just draw out his answers to questions? Sure. Did he give an entire history lesson that wasn't necessary? Sure. The guy didn't want to give an interview. He gave an interview, but he's not an interview kind of guy. The guy's going to obfuscate the truth because everybody, everywhere, at all times has a bias. He has a vision of what his world looks like. He has a vision of everybody's world, what it looks like. He's just answering questions to answer it. His goal is to make himself look good. Tucker Carlson's goal was to get some interview with some information and clips. And you to push on the button to watch that interview. That was his goal. Chris Wallace has the same goal. He's saying this because he's a water carrier. He's a bootlicker. Chris Wallace is the kind of guy that cheers on Nikki Haley. Actually, in fact, he's going to wind up, if anything, is going to wind up helping Joe Biden get elected again. If it's Joe Biden. We have no idea. I mean, I don't even know if Joe Biden knows if he's even around to be able to run. He's carrying water for somebody just as much as Tucker Carlson's carrying water for himself. So for Chris Wallace to say that is dishonest. Now one of the questions he showed, one of the examples he brought up was, why didn't you ask why isn't he bombing innocent civilians? Everybody in all wars have bombed innocent civilians, whether they target them or not. They still bombed them. The asking the question of, hey, why did you bomb innocent civilians? Putin probably doesn't even have the answer of that. He doesn't even know why he did it. He just did it to win the war. That's the answer, right? For him to win. That's the simplest, most innocent answer that he could possibly get. So by Chris Wallace giving this entire, schism out of his brain, and he's carrying those buckets of water for the DNC, he probably doesn't put in this perspective that he's probably going to get Joe Biden reelected. And for everybody who needs the remindment who Joe Biden really is, I'm going to show you a few clips of what Joe Biden really is.
Yeah. Anyway, and I don't want to, well, maybe choose my words. I was just thanking, anyway, I just, look, Putin's kleptocracy, yeah. It was in January, after being elected. The late January, early February.
So that was just a small arrangement of what Mike Wallace, he would be happy. Mike Wallace would be a kid in a goddamn candy store if he could get Joe Biden reelected. Joe Biden will go out there and he won't be mean. He won't put out mean tweets. He'll say what everybody wants him to say. Mike Wallace is an establishment. He is one pencil in a case of establishment. That's all that guy is. He would be perfectly fine and happy with Donald Trump never being president again. He'd be happy with nobody who questions the bounds of the establishment narrative. He would never in his life point out the fact of failure after failure after failure is looked at as successes by these exact same people who we elect. Sadly enough, we elect them. As far as we know, we elect them. This guy is not. Mike Wallace is the one not to be trusted, because I'm pretty sure that there's plenty of interviews that Mike Wallace has done with powerful people over the decades. He didn't ask those questions for very good reasons. People that actually matter to us. Putin, in all reality, doesn't matter that much to us. Not really. Ukraine doesn't really matter that much to us. They're the ones who chose not to be on our team. They're the ones who chose not to be part of NATO. Not saying they should have or shouldn't, but they did. They knocked our hand away when we told them to join NATO. Putin has very little bearing on my life. Mike Wallace isn't worried about the border. Not really. Mike Wallace isn't worried about inflation. Not really. Mike Wallace isn't worried about your pocketbook. How are you going to pay your bills? He's worried about the Democratic narrative. That's all he's ever been. Even when he worked for Fox News, he was the same exact way. He was a never-Trumper, rhino. I don't even think technically he's a Republican. Really, there should be a third party called the Establishment Party, because that's what they are. Nikki Haley, those types of people. That's exactly what they all have been. Hopefully you watch this. Hopefully you realize it already. You probably do. Mike Wallace is a little bootlicker. That's all he's ever been. And somebody like me, you, or most people, he would scoff at and say, the duty of journalism is to hit hard-hitting questions that never get answers. So him coming out and saying this, it's just tongue-wagging at this point. He has no point to make, but other than me no like Tucker Carlson, me better. Look at me, I'm better. My daddy, my daddy, my daddy. And that's all he'll ever be. So, good luck, Mike Wallace, with licking those boots. And I'm Simple Son. Hit the like, subscribe, share button, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.